Hello, good afternoon, friends and neighbors of Houston. Mia Gradney here, coming to you from the KHOU 11 newsroom on this Friday afternoon. We have a guest joining us, Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo. Very, very busy. She's made some time to answer your questions on this Friday afternoon. We know you have a lot of questions and concerns with all that's taken place with the coronavirus response. Judge Hidalgo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Well, Judge, let's tackle the stay home, work safe order that you put in place earlier this week. Are residents of Harris County, Houston complying?
For the most part, yes. I'm looking out the window right now and I'm not seeing a single car. We've gotten reports from our law enforcement, our researchers, that so far it does look like folks are doing their part. We always need more. On this depends the success of our efforts. And so I went for a run yesterday and I saw a group of people. There was maybe 15 people. I could just tell it was folks who normally exercise together at the gym, and so now they decided to exercise together at the park, and they were in very close contact and passing around balls, and that's the kind of thing we don't need. We were working so hard to allow folks to continue getting some fresh air, be out and about, because we need it, but we have to keep that spacing. Same with businesses. We've gotten quite a few requests. I wouldn't say an overwhelming amount, but certainly some from businesses who are trying to say, well, if I read this word in the order a certain way and then I combine it with this other word, then I'm essential. And, that's not the point. We've gotten some comments from employees who say that their supervisors or the owners of the company have said, this business is essential to me, therefore it's essential. That's not the way we want to read the order. So I would say for the most part, folks are complying, but we need really everybody to help us. We're observing, we're seeing the case rate, and we can do this. We can get through this better than other places. We can be an example, and it depends entirely on every single member of this community.
Judge, you talked about your experience being out in the park and that group that you saw that were doing everything that you're not supposed to be doing right now. With the weather so beautiful and gorgeous this afternoon and looking ahead into the weekend, are you concerned with the nice weather and people maybe having similar behavior, getting out there in what they think is a small group of people and convening with each other?
Yes, I'm concerned. I really am. And this was a decision we went back and forth on, the parks. Chicago Mayor Lightfoot just closed all of them. To me, it's really important. We're taking care of health and safety, and mental health is part of that. And so when everybody is at home, to be able to just walk outside and go, see a tree and breathe some fresh air is really important. And so we're trying it out. We wanted to give folks an opportunity to do that. But of course, if we begin seeing folks congregating in the parks, to a significant extent, we're going to have to think twice about it. And so, we have folks out there watching, trying to educate people, say, look, please do your part. And I'm asking folks as we walk into, we turn to the weekend, as we see this beautiful weather, to, be out there with your child, with one other person. But there's nothing magical about the number 10. Any group is a problem. It's that close contact where you can end up infecting somebody else. And so this is not the time for a game of soccer, basketball, group exercise classes outside. It's just not the time. We're in the middle of a disaster. We are activated at level 1. We have, left it open for folks to go to the park just so they can get fresh air, so they can exercise, but not so they can congregate in groups. And we need people's help with that.
Right. Mayor Hidalgo, you've addressed a lot of people's questions just with that answer. A lot of people asking, will parks stay open? A lot of people asking if you can close parks. I think you explained that as well. Let's talk about the current numbers here in Harris County. How many people have tested positive in Harris County with the coronavirus?
Currently, Harris County outside the city of Houston is about 160 total. Right now we're at 160. City of Houston at last count had 68. So, put those together, total within the Harris County boundaries, we've got, 228 people who've tested positive. Again, we've been ramping up our testing capacity. We've been at 100% capacity in our county testing sites since we opened them to the public on Monday. At this point, by the end of today, we'll be well above 2,000 people tested. And so we're going to see a lag in those positive cases. We expect the numbers to go up and continue rising quite exponentially for some time. And the question is, how high up do they go before they come back down? And that's what depends fully on our cooperation and keeping that physical distance from other people, not leaving the house unless it's absolutely essential. And especially, as we said, with the parks, with no workplaces should be open unless they are essential.
Let's talk about the testing sites for the county. How many testing sites are operating right now, and how many tests do you have, and do you think you have enough to last for a significant amount of time?
We have 2 county testing sites right now. That's as many as we could have supplies for. At some point when we said, if we had our wishes, how many testing sites would we want in Harris County? And we said at least 10. But the problem is that there aren't enough supplies out there for us to be able to run that number of tests. And so ultimately we decided there's going to be 2 county sites, 2 City of Houston sites. They've opened one of them. I know they're working on their second one. And so those are the sites that are being fed by federal government materials, which were the only ones we could get our hands on in a significant number. And so far, so we're doing 250 tests per site per day. So 500 per day on the county sites. The city is roughly, I think they're a little below 250, but they're doing their tests as well on their site. And we have enough materials right now for at least another 3 or 4 days. We are expecting another shipment from the federal government of supplies, and that's the thing, is every 3 days they're supposed to send us a shipment, and so that's what we're relying on. If a shipment doesn't arrive, we would have to cease testing.
And of course, with the testing, you have to have the proper safety equipment, talking about the PPEs that are in such demand. Judge Hidalgo, talk to us about acquiring those, where things stand in the county now, and especially with our hospitals having enough.
So as you know, there's the personal protective equipment that everybody needs, and there's a shortage everywhere. Our hospitals are trying to procure it as much as they can. We are trying to as well. That's part of the reason. That's all tied together as to why we can't allow a spike in the virus. Half of the reason why we can't do more testing is yes, we're lacking reagents and test kits, but we're also lacking PPE, and that's what we receive from the federal government every couple of days. And so we are in a situation currently where if we had the rate or the percentage cases that New York sees, we would be in a very difficult situation to have enough materials. We would be seeing scenes like what we're seeing there, like what we're seeing in Italy, right here in Harris County. And that's why we're doing everything we can to avoid that situation. And we can do it. We can prevent that so long as we work together and each of us takes this seriously and each of us does our part. Now, are we planning for the worst? Yes. We are planning for surge capacity, additional beds on top of the beds that the hospitals are already maximizing. Is that enough for if a certain percentage of the population gets sick and needs ICU? No, we just can't possibly build that many beds. We can't possibly procure that much PPE. There just isn't enough in the country right now. And so that is why we have to do everything we can and work at all costs to avoid the number of cases they're seeing elsewhere, and why I'm really asking for everyone's support and work to stay away from other people.
Judge, I now want to get to some of our questions from our viewers. Emmanuel Balderas asked, what about apartment renters? They are not getting a reprieve like homeowners. They still have to pay rent by the 1st. If you can give us some general information about apartment renters' rights, if you can offer any perspective there for Emmanuel Balderas.
Yes, good question. We are all happy to be seeing the federal package come down from the federal government. That will be good news for folks, and I know we're expecting folks who qualify, and it'll be the vast majority of people to receive at least a check of over $1,000. They're working on unemployment insurance and benefits and all of that. Locally, what we've been able to do is our judges essentially deferred eviction cases. And so if somebody is being evicted because of domestic violence, that kind of thing, obviously we have to move forward with the eviction. But if it's somebody who can't pay because of coronavirus, those evictions will be postponed. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't ultimately owe the rent. Eventually, that rent will come due. And what I've said is I'm willing to extend that order for as long as is necessary, but it will be due at some point. And that's why the federal aid is so important. And we're working here in the county to see what kind of rental assistance we can provide for when that time comes. So look, it's difficult for all of us as we are making the decisions about, the orders, the stay home, work safe order, the other steps we've taken. We're also trying to see how we can ameliorate the impacts. And the reality of it is going to hurt. It is hurting a lot of people very, very significantly, business owners, workers, all kinds of people. But the calculus we're making is that it would be much, much, much worse if we find ourselves in the kind of situation that New York, Italy, and other places are headed toward.
Judge Hidalgo, with New Orleans now being dubbed as one of the hot spots for the coronavirus, how concerned are you about Houston becoming a hot spot?
Of course, very concerned about that. My guiding light is always science and data, but the question I'm constantly asking myself is how can we stay ahead of the virus? So we can't just do things exactly when each of those cities or counties did things. We have to do it earlier. We have to do better. And that's what we're working on now. And so when people say, well, only a small percentage of the hospital beds are taken up right now, the answer is the rate of increase in which of these cases and the rate at which these hospital beds are being taken up is way too fast. If we keep going up that path, we will quickly find ourselves where these different cities and counties are. And so it is something that is concerning, but what we're doing about it is acting accordingly, acting to do better. And that's what the order is about. And I just can't stress enough. It's in our hands. I can work with our law enforcement and our emergency management professionals and public health and the hospitals to plan beds, to work on surge capacity, to administer as many tests and ask the federal government every day, for their shipment and work with our state partners and work with our schools to deliver the food. We can do all of that, but it's not enough. No matter how stringent an order is, it's only as effective as the people who abide by it. Right now, folks are doing great. We cannot let off, certainly not because of this great weather, the fact that the weekend is coming. We're having to make tough decisions, but just think about it's for your benefit, for the benefit of your family, and for the benefit of your community. And so if you think of going outside for something non-essential, if you are a business owner and you're trying to think about how to get around the order, think twice, because obviously there are consequences. We know the order has a up to $1,000 fine, up to 180 days in jail. That's not what we want, but the consequences are there, and law enforcement is authorized if necessary to enforce that. But more broadly, it's something that we need people's cooperation and willing cooperation with, and we're getting it. But we have to do better and better and not let off if we want to avoid the kind of situations we're seeing now in New Orleans as well.
Judge Hidalgo, we have thousands of people joining us on our various platforms. Art Montoya asks, are you going to close Bush Airport? And I'm going to assume he's asking this question because of what was put in place yesterday about flights coming from New York City as well as New Jersey, Connecticut, and so forth. So his question, Art Montoya, are you going to close Bush Airport?
Yeah, Mr. Montea, good question. We're not there yet. We're seeing folks not coming into the airports at such numbers that that's really been such an issue, and it would be something we'd have to discuss with the city. And so where we are right now is with the order. That said, as we plan for a worst case scenario, we're considering all kinds of options. And to the extent that we do well with this order now, we will be able to avoid other more difficult decisions. So at this moment, no. But certainly, like just like we're looking at the parks and seeing like, okay, are people out there walking with one person, walking their dog, walking with their child, or are they out there, trying to have a group party or a group game? And on that will depend where we end up going with the parks. Obviously, we don't want folks touching anything. We know the virus lives on surfaces for up to 48 hours, and those are the kinds of analyses and just evaluation that we're making on a day-to-day basis. Later today, we'll be issuing more information on the readyharris.org website to clarify some of the FAQs we've gotten about the order. But the main message I have for folks is, if you have a question about the order, you can read it. If you are wondering whether or not you're essential, assume no. If you still think you might be, you could fill out a form on readyharris.org that answers, that will work it through our process. We may grant waivers. I can tell you that the vast majority of the requests have been denied, but we have granted some, like folks who supply essential materials to hospitals, or the face shields that we now have Houston Community College being able to produce. And then we'll be giving additional guidance based on what people are asking about consistently.
Judge Hidalgo, a couple more questions for you. Dee Ortega and Crystal Rios both have the same question, and this is a question we've seen frequently since we started our session here. Why not lock down?
Why not lock down? You think about this county, 5 million people, you can't just turn the lights off. We see a couple days ago in India, the prime minister said, that's it. Shut down, nobody can go outside. Well, what do you do then for basic necessities? And, people go hungry. And so it's not, we're all making the best decisions we can with the information. We felt that it was possible to keep the basic things going, that we need to keep moving for society to just continue at a basic level. And we made allowances, for example, for people to be able to go enjoy some fresh air. We're constantly reevaluating. I think at this point, if we see people comply with the order, if everyone continues to do their part, this is going to have a huge effect. The data that we saw from the UT Health expert said, as us implementing this on time would decrease the amount of cases manyfold, and on that depends, that depends fully on people's compliance. The reality of it is, if we were to issue a full lockdown, nobody can so much as stick their head out the door. That still would depend on whether people complied or not. And so we believe, in the conversations we had with the health experts and the data people, that this should lead to enough. We are watching it in practice. One of the things, for example, we saw is we said car dealerships could remain because of the mechanic side of it. We've heard a lot of reports that the showrooms are open, and so we're putting out clarity. We don't want anybody out trying on cars right now, or those showrooms. We're just saying we want to, if people need to drive to a test site and their car broke down, we want to make sure that they're able to fix it. We're such a car-driven society, and so we want the mechanics, the shop part of the dealerships open, but it's not, we want people out there, sitting in different cars to see which one they like. So this is a smart order. We're approaching it as we see the behavior, as we see the questions, and certainly if we deem it necessary to move further, we will. But it just wasn't prudent at this point, and it's very difficult to just shut off the light on such a huge county. It may be infeasible.
Judge Hidalgo, we want to break real quick. Stay with us. Some breaking news. President Trump is signing the coronavirus rescue package, that $2 trillion package being put in place to assist American workers as well as American businesses, happening right now. Once again, breaking news. President Trump signing the coronavirus rescue package. Wanted to get that in there real quick. Circling back around to our questions from our viewers. Another one of the most popular asked questions, Judge Hidalgo, is about Memorial Park. People are concerned about Memorial Park because, yes, we want folks to get out and get fresh air, but they're saying the park is packed.
I've heard that. We've advised our law enforcement to keep an eye out. We are watching these days, and if people don't comply, we will have to take further action. I mean, I'm with you. This isn't about saying parks are open and so they're forever open despite people congregating. So this is where it's in everyone's hands, and I hope folks will be responsible for themselves, for their families, for the safety of the entire community. But we'll be watching, and yes, it's just a matter of, you know, watching a couple of days. If it keeps going, we'll have to take further action.
Okay, final question, because we know you have so much more important business to tend to at the moment. Road travel to Louisiana and New Orleans this weekend. If someone thinks I'm going to hit the road, and New Orleans is now a hot spot and travel is discouraged from people leaving from New Orleans, what are your recommendations and thoughts for Houstonians who are possibly considering hitting the road this weekend and heading to that area?
I'm just hoping that question would never come up. I mean, we've said stay home. Really, that's it. I mean, safe. You've got someone you have to take care of over there, right? And it's life or death type thing. But unless it's absolutely necessary, you shouldn't be going to, you know, anything non-essential, much less, you know, trying to drive to elsewhere, whether it's a hot spot or not. Right now, the request, the order that came out, and the action that is in our hands to avoid the worst of this crisis for your community, for your family, for yourself, is stay home. I know it's hard. I know it's hard on the economy. I know it's hard on us, our own just sanity to have to be at home and, you know, being distanced from other people. But we have the power to stem the tide and the spread of this virus. It's on each of us.
All right, Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo taking out some time to answer your questions. Judge, we are so very appreciative of your time. We wish you the best during these challenges, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.